Do or do we not like dad jokes?
I love dad jokes.
Well, if you do, you're in for a treat. So we have a dad joke competition between two individuals within our district. Let me introduce them first. Number one, a man whose wit is so dry, it's actually listed in Britannica as one of the world's 72 deserts. Please welcome Mr. Gluskin. Is that true? Wow, dang. All right, next up. It's a man who you know must have a good sense of humor because he works in the district office as an administrator over in Vernon Hills. Please welcome Dr. Ben Rodriguez. Now, you guys have probably seen Mr. Gluskin before, even though he's with me up in the boonies over here. But Dr. Rodriguez, like I said, he's over in district office most days, but he does come over here every once in a while to hang out with us, which is great. He's literally the nicest man in the world. Okay, so if you ever see him, say hi. He will talk to you. He's great. He does wonderful things here. We're glad he's with us. But let's get to the dad joke. So we have a prize for the winner. Dr. Rodriguez, would you mind holding this up for the audience to see? So whoever wins today gets a bumper sticker that says, "Dad jokes are how I roll." Now that is the Cybertruck bumper sticker version. We also have your typical car size, and then if you're riding a bicycle, we have one that hypothetically could go on a bike too. Winner gets to choose the size of the bumper sticker. But that is the prize today, along with, of course, bragging rights. Now here's how this is going to work. Dr. Rodriguez and Mr. Gluskin, because this is Writers Expo, have written 5 dad jokes. We're going to give them each a mic so that you can hear them. And they're going to go back and forth one at a time with the dad jokes, okay? I'm going to be the judge. What I'm going to be looking for, not in the teller of the joke, but in the hearer of the joke, is any indication whatsoever of a smirk or a smile or a chuckle or a laugh. And if there's anything, the person who told the joke gets the point, okay? First hour, Mr. Thompson took down Mr. O'Neill. If you know either of them, there you go. Well done, sir. If there's a tie, you guys are the deciding vote. Okay? Now, how do we respond to dad jokes? Do you laugh?
Yeah.
Okay, then laugh. Do you groan?
No.
Then groan. Okay? Maybe not booing, that might be a bit strong. Okay? But groaning or laughing, totally cool. How do you guys want to decide who goes first? Do you want the official chicken? Do you want rock, paper, scissors like they did? Audience decide.
Whoever has more hair.
Oh, we agree? Whoever has more hair?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gluskin's going to go first. Dad joke number 1.
What sport do vegetables love to play? Pickleball.
Well, it was close, but I think he maintained a straight face. All right.
What do you call a wildcat with 5 eyes? A wildcat.
Pretty good from Gluskin. All right.
0-0. What is a clock's favorite social media app? TikTok.
Stone cold.
What is a Jack-in-the-Box's favorite season?
What?
Spring.
All right.
0-0 still. Lots of extra eyes in your jokes. What's it called when you fall asleep in a class at a university?
What?
College board.
Pretty good. All right. Yeah. These guys have poker faces.
What is a mathematician's favorite season? Summer.
All right, round 4.
What is the best animal ever? The goat.
There we go. 1 point on the board, Mr. Gluskin.
What? There's a theme to all these. What is the Tooth Fairy's favorite season? Fall.
Nope, nothing out of Gluskin. I think somebody's had him in class before. All right, here we go.
What does the fairy godmother from Cinderella say when she wants to see a meme online? She waves her wand and says, "Skibbity bobbity boo."
Oh, there was a small little smile there, perhaps. Okay, here we go.
What is a slug's least favorite season? Salt.
Well done. Well done. That got Gluskin finally to crack. All right, I think we have over 1 point for Mr. Gluskin and a point for Dr. Rodriguez. Both very well done. We appreciate it. That was 5 jokes, right? I was counting correctly. I got this in my head. Okay, good. Great. All right, so, yeah, Mr. Gluskin, what size bumper sticker do you want?
Bicycle.
Bicycle size?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds appropriate. I'm not even sure this can fit on a bicycle, really, but there you go. All right, round of applause for our participants here today. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you want to participate in a dad joke competition next year, I think we could make that happen, so just let us know. Yeah, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, so today we've got another fantastic guest. He is a prolific, best-selling author of primarily graphic novels and comic books, most often writing in the genres of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. His Roche Limit trilogy was named by Paste magazine as one of the 50 greatest sci-fi comics of all time. His debut novel, Black Star Renegades, was cited as one of the best science fiction books of the year by the Chicago Review of Books and was an Audie Award finalist. He is a local Chicagoan. Please welcome Mr. Michael Moreci.
Okay, thanks everyone for being here. I'm glad to be here, excited to be here. So what I'm going to do, be pretty straightforward, pretty casual. I'm gonna tell a little bit about who I am, what I do, and how I do it. And then I'm going to see if any of you have any questions. Actually, there's some examples of some of the stuff I do. And there's a much younger me, believe it or not. Sorry. So, who I am, first of all. So, like Mr. Tooley said, I am local. I actually grew up on the south side of Chicago, right by Midway Airport. Still have family around there. I live now in Oak Park, so not too far away. 2 kids who go to school out there. I actually coach, in addition to writing, I've played soccer my whole life, and I coach at the local high school, Fenwick. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but I've been coaching there for a few years. So besides that, speaking of writing and speaking a little bit about soccer, something that I wanted to like dovetail together, because I often get asked, like, you know, how do I do it? How did I do what I do? How did I get to being where I am in terms of being a writer? Because, you know, being a writer is a, you know, like all arts, is kind of a strange and peculiar career in terms of like a pathway to getting there. You know, like if you're, you know, an accountant or a lawyer or something like that, which are all, you know, great professions and everything like that, there is a system, you know, like you go to college, you go to law school, you go to, I don't know, accounting school, whatever accountants do, and then you get an internship, get on the path to getting a career, getting a job at a firm, etc. Now, writing is not really like that. Like, writing is very solitaire, and that's one of the reasons why it's kind of difficult to talk about. But the thing that I always tell people, you know, when I started writing, it was just something that I did. And it's funny, the thing that I think about when I was thinking about, like, what do I talk about? Like, how do I kind of describe this? And it kind of dovetails with being an athlete and with coaching. And I have a young son, two young sons, who one of them plays soccer as well. One of them is into art, and like me, likes to want to make comics, and he makes little short stop animation movies, and he puts them on YouTube and that kind of stuff, and it's pretty fun. But there's, you probably have all heard of this, like the 10,000 hour rule of, like, to be proficient at something, to be good at something, you know, you have to put in a lot of time of doing it, of just doing it. You know, 10,000 hours, of which 9,999, you're not going to be very good at the thing, but you're becoming good. You're getting all the bad kind of out of your system. It's sort of similar, that saying that sounds cynical, but I don't think it's as cynical as it sounds, like the fake it till you make it, which some people think was like being inauthentic, when I think really what it means is that, like, you just kind of do a thing until you find yourself doing the thing. Like, in a way, like I was just saying the last time, like, if you wanted to be a basketball player, you say, okay, well, what do basketball players do? It's like, well, basketball players, you know, practice 3 hours a day, 4 times a week. So I'm gonna do what a basketball player does, and I'm gonna practice 3 hours a day, 4 times a week, right? And then after a few weeks or months or whatever, you're not mimicking being a basketball player, you are a basketball player. And the same thing that I say to, like, my athletes that I coach, same thing I say to my kids, it's just like doing it, and the repetition of doing it, and the repetition and the habit, and you find yourself just doing it. And that's how it was for me with writing. I graduated grad school at Northwestern out in Evanston, and after I got out, I wanted to write. I had gone to school for writing, and I'd been writing for years. And it's funny because when I was in grad school for Northwestern, it was very much like capital L literature stuff, like proper books and things like that, the things that I never, ever write. I don't think I'm smart enough to do it. But I wanted to write comics, and I wanted to, you know, I had been in film for a little while, we can talk about that in a moment, but I wanted to write comics. And when I did, I just started doing it, you know, like I just started writing comic scripts. I started learning how comic scripts look and how they work and how they function and what the industry is like what does it mean to publish a comic, and what should you look for, and where should you do it, and how should you do it. And through that process of learning and doing it, like I said, it's like the basketball player that's just like, hey, I'm gonna practice X amount of time, X amount of days, and I just kept writing and kept doing it, and before I knew it, I was doing it. You know, I published my first short comic shortly after, you know, getting out of Northwestern, and that comic led to another comic, which led to another comic, and all the while I was still writing and still doing it, and I got hopefully better, and I understood and got more proficient. And I just learned the process of doing it through the process of really just doing it. So what I do now, like Mr. Tooley had said, so I work, in terms of comics, we can talk about film and TV and that stuff that I do in a moment, but in terms of comics, what I do, I work for a hybrid of stuff that I create my own things. There's books that I've made called Barbaric, Wasted Space, The Plot, Roche Limit, Mr. Tooley mentioned. Those are things that I myself created. And then there's stuff that I work for that is called writing for licensed properties like Stranger Things. Now, Stranger Things, obviously, I did not make. I wish I did. I would have so much money. But I've written for the comic, though, and what happens is that there is such a thing as a licensor, which in this case is Netflix. Netflix controls the rights to Stranger Things. They're the ones that produced it, along with the Duffer Brothers. They created it. So they hold what's known as the license, just like a legal term to say we have the rights to do what we choose and don't choose to do with this idea, this property. Something like Stranger Things is, you know, colloquially known as IP, which means intellectual property. And what they will do, a place like Netflix, they will go to some place that's, if they want to do a comic, they'll go to a comic publisher, which is this case, Dark Horse, which you see in the top left corner, and they'll say, hey, do you want to license Dark Horse comics? I'm sorry, do you want to license Stranger Things? Do you want to do comics? Dark Horse obviously said yes. And then Dark Horse will say, okay, well, we need writers and artists. Artists is a whole different process to find the right person, but for writers, they'll have what's called a bake-off, which basically like they'll go to a bunch of writers and they'll say, hey, do you have any ideas for stuff that you might do for Stranger Things comics? Do you have stories you want to tell that fit in this universe? I was one of the people who they asked. I was one of the people who said, yeah, I would love to do that. And I sent them some ideas. They liked them, and I've been writing for Stranger Things for a few years now. This is the latest thing that I did. The Voyage is a sequel to a previous series I did called Kamchatka. I don't know if anybody watches Stranger Things, but in season 4, they go to Russia. There's a Russian gulag prison, and some of the stuff that I did takes place in there. So Dick Tracy is a little bit different. That's something that like I went and got the license myself, so technically I hold the license to Dick Tracy through the Tribune Company, who is the rights holder. I've been doing that for a few years. And like I've said, I also work in film and TV, and I'll talk about this for a minute, then I'll talk about what a day usually looks like for me, and answer some questions if anybody has any. But so anyway, so around 2000, I got back into film, weirdly because of COVID. It's something I had done before when I was in my early 20s. Before I went to Northwestern for grad school, I was working as a PA, which is a production assistant for HBO. I didn't have the best experience, I would say. A PA is kind of the lowest of the jobs on a film or TV set. Like you're basically like fetching coffee, you're making copies, you're driving things out to the set, you're parking people's cars, expensive cars, and hoping to God you don't damage them. And that's really your day, 14 hours a day. It's not great, I didn't love it. I was making my own short movies at the time. And I don't know, I just kind of fell out of it. I wish I hadn't, but I did. And that's when I decided to go to Northwestern. But anyway, COVID came along, and I have friends who are produce movies down in Champaign. And they're like, hey, we need to keep people working. We need to make a movie. We need to do something to keep our crew working so they're able to make money, and we're able to keep them going and keep them and their families, doing well through this time. So they needed to write a movie that needed to be very contained, that you can make during COVID, which basically nobody's close to each other. There's a minimal amount of people, minimal amount of sets and things like that. So similarly, like the Bake Off with Stranger Things, they came to a couple people and said, do you have ideas? And I said, sure, I do. And that idea came out to be Revealer, which is a movie that got made in 2021, I believe, and came out in 2022. This is one of the latest things that I've done. It's called Revival. This was a best-selling comic series that you see there that's written by Tim Seeley, drawn by Tim Norton. My production company, Shattered Glass, acquired the rights to it, and we adapted it to a TV show. It actually just got finished filming in Canada at the end of 2024 in December is when we wrapped. It's right now in post-production, which means it's being edited, we're adding color, we're adding sound. I don't know if you ever know this, like in film and TV, like for those who don't know, like you actually go through a long process of color grading, which is like where you really discover like what it's gonna look like. I mean, when you film it, there's a certain amount of like color that's like locked in place, but not so much anymore. Like when it was actually on film, you couldn't manipulate the color too much, but now that everything's done digitally, that you actually can do a lot with color. You can change it, you can, you can't, because of lighting restrictions, not too much you can do. There are still things that you can't do with color. You can't change it totally, but there are a lot that you can do. So a lot of, they say that like a movie is made 3 times. It's like when you write it, when you shoot it, and when you edit it. And part of the editing process is like finding the color, finding the sound design, finding the soundtrack, things like that. So that's the process that we're in now, and it's gonna be on Sci-Fi and streaming, I think on Peacock, sometime this year. So, normal day for me. I was saying in the last session, I grew up pretty blue collar, all Teamster family. So like, I don't see writing as like, I don't need to be like inspired. I don't need to like be in the mood to write. I bring my kids to school. I come home. I go to my desk. I write from like 8:30 till about 2:30 or so when I have to pick my kids up. Sometimes I'll work at night, sometimes mainly like emails and junk like that, like I'm not great at responding all the time, like a lot of writers, but I do my best. That's generally it. That's kind of how I work, and that's kind of how I function. What the job looks like a little. There's much more to it. But is there any specifics that anybody else wants to know? I can go to another. Yeah, there's my Star Wars stuff. I've written for Star Wars for years. Somebody told me I've written, so there are two lines of Star Wars comics. So Marvel Comics does which is funny to think of like grown up, because like Star Wars isn't for grown ups. It's like a space fantasy. But Star Wars, Marvel does those grown up Marvel, and then Dark Horse and IDW do the kids version. And somebody told me I've written more kids Star Wars comics than anyone. Like I hold the record or something like that, which I don't. That might be true. I actually don't know, but cool if it is. But I've written a lot. I know that. So that's some of my Star Wars stuff. This is a film that I did. I know Mr. Truly's gonna have a question. We'll get to this. But prior to that, does anybody have any other questions? Anybody have really anything at all? I'm pretty flexible with answering stuff. Yes.
What the hand symbolized in the Lost Ark?
The hand question.
Go to the next slide there, Michael.
Is it the next slide?
I think so.
Okay, hold on. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So the answer's gonna be, I'm gonna warn you right now, probably underwhelming. So the artist on this, her name was Sass Millage. I thought she was, to be frank, one of the best artists I've ever worked with. She is absolutely phenomenal. She is so good. Her work, the way a comic is done, and I explained this last time too, it's like a process in terms of art. There's like layouts, and then there's pencils that go over the layouts that kind of finalize. The layouts will be like a rough of like the pages kind of look like this. It just gives a sense of like, it'll be this layout and this design, but nothing's really concrete. You'll even have in places of people almost like stick figures. Then the pencils come and really kind of give shape and character to it. The inks really finalize it, and then the colors are the last stage. Actually, the colors and then the letters go on top of that. So her work with designing the world, designing her character design, the way people look is so rich, and her expressions are so great. But part of the things that she did was, and we can kind of bounce back and forth, just very inventive. I don't know if there's any more. Oh, nope. Part of the work that she did was so inventive in terms of her layouts and the perspectives that she took and the way she heightened emotion was really, really remarkable. I've never really worked with anybody who was able to do what she did, and that's a good example of it, like the way she's isolating those hands. Now, if I had to guess, if I'm gonna kind of read Sass's mind, because this was not in the script. I'm not gonna take credit for it, because none of this is me. But if I had to guess, so The Lost Carnival is a origin story of Dick Grayson, who goes on to become Nightwing, and what happens to Dick Grayson is that he is a carnival trapeze artist, and his parents get killed in, sorry, spoiler, but whatever. His parents get killed in a circus doing the trapeze act. There's different variations of why they died doing it. There's, it gets messy, but the foundation is they get killed during the act. So this doesn't happen in the story. This isn't really, The Lost Carnival is not an origin story for Dick Grayson, but what I think she's trying to do is heighten the emotion of the danger of the trapeze. So the trapeze in there really sticks out very white against that blue. The blue is what you would call flat, because there really isn't a ton of gradient in it, so it's more of a flat color grading that she's doing. And then you have the white, which is also a little bit flat, because there's not a ton of gradient in that either, so it really pops, Now his hands are also, separated from his body. He's got the black of his arms and the white, which also causes that popping effect, and then further enhancing that by the squares that are put around that. So if I had to guess, because people who are reading this most likely know Dick Grayson's origin story and what happens to his parents, she's probably trying to heighten the drama of the moment by really calling attention to the danger of the trapeze act. And so you have the bar, you have his hands that have to grip it, and ideally grip it fully, don't fall, because it could be very dangerous if he does. So I don't want to say for sure, but if I had to guess, it'd be that she's really trying to accentuate the danger of the act. I don't know. I guess there was questions about like maybe symbolism of hands in the book. I'm not sure. I've never really thought about it. It never really came to mind. But for this particular moment, that would be my best guess. So yeah, but it was a great question. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? I can keep going on. I can go back to a different slide.
I do have another question. No one else does. I don't want to steal it though.
Yeah, then I can go backwards to something.
Okay, yeah, the Roche limit stuff.
Yeah.
So, volume 1 of Roche limit is the only one I loved it, but you
Oh,
have a lot
thanks.
of like blueprints of like almost like slideshow presentations that someone would be giving as a presentation, and there was a lot of sciencey stuff in there. You're talking about, well, I'm an English teacher, stuff I can't even name. But like Roche limit, right? That's a term from what, astrophysics or something. So I'm wondering like,
Yes.
how much science do you just know, and how much are you having to go research to make the story work?
How much I know is very little. Like you, the English background, not much. How much do I research? A lot for Roche limit. Yeah, I typically don't. So I can go back to that to show what Mr. Tooley's talking about. So I haven't in a while, at least, done much research, at least in the way I did for Roche limit. But you know, I wanted to do something with Roche limit that was very specific and based in some sort of science. Like when you're dealing with science fiction, and when you're even dealing with science, there's always going to be some sort of what I call like junk science to it. You know, that's like, yeah, it's kind of theoretically true, at least like right now, and generally those things get disproven pretty quickly, and you know, it goes away. But at the moment, it's usually kind of theoretical, and theoretical is kind of cool, kind of interesting. You know, that gives you an idea of possibilities, you know, and maybe the scientific ideas are possible. Maybe we can reach these new heights and things like that. So when I was dealing with Roche limit was, I wanted to create something that kind of blended philosophical ideas with scientific ideas. And I did a lot of research because Roche limit, the actual term is a blend of like, yeah, physics, but also like kind of mathematical because there's an equation to it as well. It's like, it's the distance in which one body gets, body being like a body of, you know, mass of a planet or a moon or something like that. And one body gets within the body of another, what's called orbit, and the other is so powerful that it pulls the other apart. You know, so like that is the Roche limit, is like that space between. And so the book is about things like coming apart. You know, this detective is on, and this woman are both on a kind of a journey to investigate what's happened to a missing woman, and what's happened is kind of, I don't want to give it away, but goes into some of these theories about things coming apart. But, you know, one of the things I talked about last time in the last session was that like you being me as well have to remember that like comics and TV and film are visual mediums. So like for me, if I read, for instance, a comic where there's like a ton of, you know, word balloons and there's a ton of dialogue, and like you have this page, you know, art page, and it's just like cluttered with words. Like I'm stopped like dead in my tracks. I'm like, I don't want to read this. Like it's too much. Like I want to just like, I want to flow with the visual story. So for Roche limit, I didn't want to make the narrative cumbersome with having to have characters say these things. Because the more you have characters, like, as the old adage in writing, that's always true, you know, you show and you don't tell. So if I had if I had the characters just saying this kind of stuff, it would be dry and it would be boring, and I think it would just destroy the narrative. So I was like, well, how can we convey this information that is maybe not necessarily essential? Like if you read it and you get it, it adds some depth and layers to the stories, but if you don't, the narrative still works. So that's where we started to put like these infographics in. We added back matter, which would be like, you know, interviews, magazine articles that were about characters or things like that, just like ancillary materials that I thought kind of just heightened the world and gave more depth to the ideas and helped concretize them. I don't know if it's something I would do again. I did enjoy doing it, and the comic did well, but I ended up doing another sci-fi book called Waste of Space, where I was like wanted to do the opposite, where it was still had like this kind of philosophical spine, but I was like, well, how do I do it without those infographics? You know, how do I just create the world and let it be loose? So it just depends on the approach. Like Waste of Space is very, very loose. Like you never really know the rules of the galaxy. Roche Limit's more based in reality. Like for example, like Waste of Space, there is no Earth. Like we don't know where Earth is, when Earth is. You know, we don't really talk about that. Where Roche Limit, like people have come from Earth, so there is a connection to the reality and the science and the world that we know. So the infographic is just one way to like make it work on a narrative level without impeding the narrative thrust that you should have, if that makes sense. Yeah. Is there any other things? I mean, I can talk about a little bit about writing for film and TV. I think we have a few more minutes. Is that cool, Mr. Tooley? 5 more minutes we have?
We got, actually 15.
We have 15 minutes.
There's a question over here.
Oh, yeah. Yes, please.
When you're writing for IP, how much freedom do you have to introduce new elements, or do they like, have you ever been told you can't do something in a story because of plans they have for future episodes or future movies or anything like that?
Yes, so that's an interesting question. It depends. And I'll explain. So like, how do I explain this? So on one hand, you're not really compelled to create new IP, because here's the thing, you don't own anything. So if I made a new character for Marvel or Stranger Things, and this character like appeared for the next 50 years or 500 years or whatever the case may be, like I earn nothing. Like that there's no kind of incentive for me to do that. But you kind of have to by necessity. So that's kind of the difference. Like that's why personally, like I enjoy doing things like Barbaric or Roche Limit, because I own this. Like Roche Limit is mine, and it's Malhotra is the artist, Vic Malhotra. Like we hold the rights, we have the ownership of that. So if there were ever a TV show of Roche Limit, which there was, like we were like this close, kind of heartbreaking, but we were like at the 1 yard line for that show being made. We had a great script for a pilot episode was great. We had Jennifer Chow was going to direct it. She went on to direct like a bunch of Star Wars TV. It would have been awesome. And basically, long story short, this is an aside, but this is like the craziness of making film and TV is that like right when we were going for the final green light, and there's also, like I said, revivals on sci-fi. This was also going to be sci-fi. This is years ago. A George R. R. Martin show came on called like Night Flyers or something like that. And Night Flyers was very expensive and tanked. Nobody watched it. And the people at Sci-Fi saw Roche Limit as being similar to that, and they're like, nope. So that went away. But to answer your question more specifically about making, how much freedom do you have? So Netflix, it depends on who you work for. So for example, like Netflix and Stranger Things are very liberal. They're like, look, like we know that like, whatever, let's say, and I'm just like making numbers, but it's kind of a ballpark, like 15 million people watch Stranger Things, okay? And like 15,000 people are gonna read this comic. So that's like 1%, right? So like if there's like a contradiction or if things don't quite add up, like the percentage of people who are even gonna see it, it's like you're talking about like a 0.5%. So like what's the big deal? So they're a lot more reasonable and realistic about it. Now, Star Wars, for example, is way more rigid, like way more rigid. They are they try to be, and I think they do a pretty good job of it. I don't read like all the books and comics. I actually don't even really watch all the shows anymore. But when I was following the universe a little bit more in its totality, like I did notice they were pretty tight in terms of like things don't overlap, they don't contradict, like the comics and the books and the shows and everything all line up pretty well. They do a pretty good job of it. But when you're doing it, like by necessity, it's almost like you have to create things though, because, for example, I just finished writing this Star Wars graphic novel about General Grievous. It's like they're doing this line of like character-based graphic novels, and I did General Grievous. It's gonna be super fun. But I was like trying to navigate like, okay, how do I have like General Grievous like go out at an adventure and do something meaningful that we haven't already seen like 1,000 times on Clone Wars episodes or the movie or whatever. Like what does another encounter with Obi-Wan really mean? And also, like, if I wanted to do another encounter with Obi-Wan, how do I fit this into the continuity of their other encounters and what Obi-Wan's doing and what Grievous are doing? So instead of that, I just created a new Jedi. I was like, okay, we'll have this Jedi, you know, and we'll have him pop up, and he's gonna get into this, he's gonna be the one that's, you know, squaring off against Grievous. So it made my life and my job a lot easier. Same thing with Stranger Things. Like like I mentioned, that one, The Voyage, and the one before that, Kamchatka, there's a Russian scientist who appears in both. And she's never been in the show, but it makes, you know, you're really trying to thread the needle oftentimes with these narratives of like making it work. And like I said, sometimes the guardrails are tighter than others, but making it work and making it make sense and making it be satisfying. But then you run into like, you know, readers who read it. You know, it's funny because like I very seldom read the reviews, but I'll see the Stranger Things reviews and it'll be like, oh my God, how do we have another adventure? I'm tired of seeing these kids. And then you do something about the kids and they're like, where's the kids? And you're like, oh my God, guys, what do you want here? So it's tough. That's why writing for the properties, the IPs, are really, really challenging because like it's hard to like do something that if you use the characters who are there, it's hard to do something that's already been done. And then you run into all sorts of like problems of continuity, and some places will slap your hands more than others. But if you create your own thing, it does give you more freedom, but then at the same time, like you're creating something, you're basically like giving them ideas and giving them characters that like maybe something happens with, and you never get compensated for that. But it does make it easier to navigate, just create your own pocket, which is why I basically do with Stranger Things. I created like, we're gonna do all these Russian stories. We know Russia is a thing because they're kind of there for a bit in season 4. It's sort of important, it's important enough. And we can go navigate cool stories in there, and then we can get in, and we can get out. And I'm friends with another writer named Scott Snyder who wrote Batman Forever, and he put it best. I think your job as a writer when you're writing for Batman or X-Men or Spider-Man or Stranger Things, whatever the case may be, is that you take the toys off the shelf and you play with them for a little while, and then you put them back exactly how you found them. And that's it, and that's how you do it. So, can be tough, you know, but that's kind of the gig. So yeah, great question, thank you. Is there anything else? Anything more for questions? Oh, sorry. Yes, oh, please.
Do you start with a script before illustration starts? And if so, how do you go about the script for like comic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, starts with a script. So I don't draw. I used to draw a bit, and I recognized early that I'm arguably not good enough, to be frank, and also definitely not fast enough. The churn of making a comic is really challenging. Like, it's 20 pages at least in 30 days, you know, and 30 days is like also including, you know, ideally weekends, you know, some time off. So it's tough. Being able to have that kind of speed is really hard. Now, the process is like, yes, it starts with a script. And when I do, there's different kinds of scripts. There's like the Marvel style script, which is basically like very loose, where it's like, it'll just say, okay, page 1, this is what's gonna happen. You know, the X-Men walk into a room and they see Magneto and they say, oh no, Magneto, you know, like very loose. And you give that to artists and they say, oh, okay, it's gonna take me 3 panels to convey what needs to be conveyed here, or 5 panels, wherever the case may be. The other type of script is a full script, where it'll actually say, page 1, this many panels, like for example 5, and it'll say, okay, panel 1, you know, Wolverine and Cyclops walk into the room and they're having this conversation, and it'll say what they say. Panel 2, their eyes go wide because they've seen something and they say, oh no, and then panel 3, we turn the POV and reveal Magneto, and they're like, Magneto's here. Very, very generic example, but the full script will actually be like a step-by-step. Here is everything that happens, here is what the characters say, and this is how it looks, basically. Now, some writers are a little more rigid than others. Like, I am more liberal, where I always tell the artists that I work with, I'm like, hey, this is a guideline. Like, if you think it's gonna take more panels, if you think it's gonna take less, if you think you should take different perspectives, if you should feel like that this needs to be rethought in some way, like, please, you know, do what you do. You are the artist. Like, be comfortable finding the correct and best path. But back to your question though, I write the script, I write full scripts. Goes to the editor, goes to the artist. They will do, the workflow differs depending on the artist, depending on the editors you work with, depending on the publishers. Like DC and Marvel just kind of take your script and they say, great, see ya, we'll let you know when it's all done. And then you just get you get the PDF of the finished comic, that's it. For something like Stranger Things, I'll see like the layouts, like the really, really roughs of it. I've always worked with an artist named Toter, who's just terrific. And I'll see the roughs, I'll see the pencils, I'll see all the stages, I'll be part of it. I rarely comment, or give, unless something's been really missed. I'm like, oh man, this character is supposed to be in here, or we got the wrong person or whatever. But generally, I look at it and I say, great job, keep going, awesome. And that's about it, because I don't want to be intrusive. But they'll do like their roughs, their pencils, their inks, goes to colors. Last step is the letters get placed over. And that's where I really kind of come back to like, I'll do a lot of editing in the lettering stage because I want to see like how the words are flowing, and if I have too many, if there's enough information depending on how each panel looks, like do I need to include a little bit more? Is everything being visually conveyed enough that it doesn't need these explanations? I want to get out as much as I can or provide a little bit more if absolutely necessary. But I used to actually do a little bit of layouts myself, and I send that to artists, again, just as a guideline to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking this page looks like. If this helps, use it. If not, that's fine. I just try to not be in the way, really, and try to like empower them to do their job the best that they can do without me being, over their shoulder. Do we have time for any more, Mr. Tooley?
Couple minutes, yeah.
Yeah, a couple minutes. Does anybody have any? Yes, please.
Do you have a favorite comic that you've written?
Favorite comic that I've written? That's a good question. Probably Wasted Space. I think that like really conveys my humor the best way possible. I think it also like conveys like my own, I rarely write about myself as little as possible. Like I don't really, I think a lot of artists and writers will say like, it's self-expression of some form. I've never really felt the need to express myself. Like, I don't know, like it makes me uncomfortable, to be honest. But I think Wasted Space is the closest that I've ever really come to like my own particular worldviews and morality and philosophy and ideas and things like that, which is kind of strange because Wasted Space is also kind of the like the most vulgar thing I've ever written, which I don't know that it necessarily is me, but like it's definitely the wildest thing that I've ever written too. Like I like a series I'm writing now called Barbaric a lot. It's definitely the most successful. It's been, and I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back, but it's been like a really big hit, which has been great. But I wouldn't call it I always thought that like my most successful thing would be my favorite thing. And then I had my most successful thing, and I don't really feel that way. I think I like the weird, more personal one the best somehow. I think that is, yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking. Is there anything else? Any more? Yes, please.
What's your favorite lightsaber color?
Red. Yeah, Sith, for sure. Yeah, how about you? What is yours?
I like blue.
Blue's a good one. Blue's a good one, yeah. Obi-Wan's my favorite, so it's hard for me not to say blue. What else? Anything else? Yes, please.
I'm just curious, was your family supportive of
That's a great question. You know, I was lucky. I was very lucky that my parents were, despite, you know, being like very, like, work people and have so much pride in their work, which I learned. Like, I work a ton. And I enjoy it. I take a lot of pleasure and value in work. But they were supportive. They didn't get it, but they were definitely always supportive. And they instilled that backbone of like, which I try to do with my own kids. Like, if you want to do it, then, you know, earn it. Go put in the work. Go do it then, you know. But my advice that I would give, you know, only you can tell yourself to quit. You know, you are doing your thing until no one can tell you to stop. No one can tell you not to do something. You know, like, you don't need to ask permission to write or create art. You don't. You just need to go do it yourself. You know, there's this great, you can find this online. There's a filmmaker named Mark Duplass who has this great speech about how the cavalry is not coming. And it's such an inspiring speech. It's for any art. You know, he's using it for film, but it's for writing, it's for painting, it's for filmmaking, it's for whatever. That, like, there is nobody that's gonna come and do it for you. There's nobody that's gonna come and give you the money you need, or give you the time that you need, or the resources you need. It's not going to happen, and that is absolutely true. Even now, as being, I think, established, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, there's never anybody who's like coming to make it easy. You know, it's not gonna be easy, and that's okay. So that's it. Thank you guys.